What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today I'm here to talk about Warhammer 40K. More specifically, going back in time to talk about the 30K era, where we have the Primarchs going out and scouring the galaxy of Xenos to free humanity and unite them under the Imperium. Here we will be looking at a Xenos threat that literally can take on a Primarch, the Slaugth. I believe that's how you pronounce it, but they go by other names as well, such as the Maggot Men and the Dream Eaters, and these guys are a threat. Their physiology is that of a bunch of worms into a humanoid form, and they're capable of wielding either psychic powers or technology capable of disintegrating molecules and atoms, so something very similar to that of the Gauss weaponry for the Necrons. But here we see none other than Alpharius taking on these Xenos, and he has quite the tough time against them. This is all coming from the novel Alpharius. Now, this is all coming from the novel Alpharius, Head of the Hydra. So definitely give this book a read, because it does provide a lot of interesting details to these Xenos, and not just that, but also the Rangdan. The Rangdan are another Xenos that is theorized was responsible for either eliminating the 2nd or the 11th Legion Primarch. So that is some really good insight to look into. But for now, let's go ahead and read this excerpt as we have Alpharius versus the Slough. So let's begin. A bolt of savage green energy struck me from my left while I was in midair, but the force of the impact knocked me sideways into the rubble of a destroyed building. One of the Maggot Men was here. It was tall, closer to 3 meters than 2, with 2 arms and what appeared to be 2 legs beneath its dark hooded robe. But any similarities it might bear to humanity vanished once you saw its exposed flesh. Its hands, in one of which clutched a corroded scepter, were both masses of maggots, and where there was a face of a human, it was simply a blank mass of writhing worms. It was indeed repulsive, but it now had a hole in its torso, the width of my arm, where my plasma pistol had burned clean through it. Unfortunately, this appeared no trouble to it at all. It then raised its scepter, and green energy played around the staff again. I sprang to one side as it fired the strange weapon, by means I could not discern, and I heard a sizzling sizzle as a section of wall past where I had just been standing was reduced to mere dust by the beam. I had no intention of chancing my refractor field against the Slough's offensive a second time, for such devices were temperamental at best. The Slough lashed out at me again with its weapon. This time my refractor field did not activate, and although my reflexes were sufficient to ensure only a glancing hit, I could not prevent the energy beam from striking the right side of my chest as I threw myself downwards. The ceramite of my chest plate burned away in a millisecond, and the energy tore into my flesh. The pain was excruciating. Although I had been burned before by fire, by acid, this was though the very molecules of my body were being ripped apart. I dropped my spear as my flesh burned away down to the bone, and agony suffused my arm. But even such Xeno-sprawled foulness was not enough to completely incapacitate someone created by the master of mankind, and I fired back. The Slough was inhumanly fast and swayed aside from the shot. Although the plasma bolt took off its right arm halfway up, it seemed to stagger back to its feet, paying no mind to its injury and charging back at me. A hail of bolter shells erupted from my left as Highmore and Gokul opened up. The creature somehow flattened its body to slide under the shots, stretching out towards me and then snapping outright once I could properly react. I tried to bring my plasma pistol to bear on it, but its damaged right arm reformed and seized my wrist to force it upwards. It swung for me with its scepter, and I blocked its arm with mine, yelling in pain as the impact jolted my abused flesh, and managed to grip its wrist with my right hand in the same manner as it had hold of my left. However, the Xenos was obscenely strong, and I was injured. Its flesh writhed under my grasp, and I struggled to keep hold of it. Then my helm began to flash warnings at me, at the same time as smoke started to rise from my gauntlets. The slough was exuding some form of caustic fluid from its own body, which was eating away at the ceramite. It would reach my skin in only a matter of moments. And to my horror, the thing made a sound that was approximately a human chuckle. "Time to die, meat thing," it hissed in a voice of mucus and rot, speaking mangled but recognizable Low Gothic. "I will enjoy your flesh." Then it hit me. I recognized it as Gukul's voice, horrendously distorted though it was, and the slough stiffened. It stopped fighting for a moment, and a moment was all I needed. I wrenched my arms free and dropped my plasma pistol from my left hand into my right, then snatched a crack grenade from my belt. I lashed out with a punch. The speed and force of my movement was so great that instead of knocking the slough backwards, my gauntlet plunged into its chest. I activated the grenade, withdrew my hand, and dived aside. The slough staggered, but its body was already reforming around the wound. Gukul's scream cut off abruptly, and the slough appeared to come to its senses, then turned towards me with its scepter raised. The grenade detonated. Its entire body came apart. Even the hideous biology of the Xenos could not survive such trauma. Pieces of it flew in all directions, and its lower body crumpled to the ground. I shook myself, trying to dislodge the parts of its flesh that had landed on me, and which were already beginning to smoke as its caustic fluids ate into my armor. "Are you hurt, Lord?" Kanan called. "Yes," I replied, through gritted teeth, rising back to my feet. "But I will live. We need to check on Gukul." The librarian was prostrate on the ground, his legs twisted under him where he had fallen. Highmore undid the neck seals of Gukul's armor and removed his battle brother's helmet, revealing a face twisted in the after effects of agony, eyeballs rolled back and blood leaking from its mouth, nose, and tear ducts. "No vital readings from his armor," Highmore reported. "It's as though everything shut down at once." I nodded sadly. He attacked the slough's mind to buy me a moment to act. Given his reaction when he'd merely touched its presence earlier, he must have known the cost of what it would mean for him. And this is only the first instance of Alpharius going toe-to-toe with one of these sloughs. Clearly, they're not one to be messing with. If you keep on reading the book, there is another instance where he fights against another one. And yeah, things go a little bit better because now he's accustomed to what they can do. And what we can infer from this is that these guys essentially can mold their body to become whatever they want, as if they were seen like flattening themselves out to avoid damage, regrowing lost limbs, and if they take damage hard enough, it won't just hit them, it'll actually go through them. And with that being said, they can also ooze out acid that is capable of tearing through ceramite, and we know how powerful ceramite is. Their weapons can also bypass certain types of force fields. Like, these guys are no joke, and it's clearly seen that if one of these guys can give a Primarch trouble, imagine what a group of them can do. And we don't have to imagine. That is what happens in the rest of this book. So I greatly recommend you guys go ahead and either find the audiobook or find the physical copy of this book, because it is great. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough. Alpharius, Head of the Hydra, is one to definitely look into. And I mean, we can confer that Alpharius, he's the smallest of the Primarchs, but he is very sneaky. He's a critical thinker. He knows how to outmaneuver his opponents, and we saw what one of them, especially one that has so many mysteries to themselves as well, can do against a Primarch. So definitely give this a read. Let me know your thoughts down below. And what do you think of the slough? Should they make these guys playable in 40k? I mean, we've got a whole bunch of Xenos that are kind of added for like kill team and stuff like that, so maybe we can see it in like a boarding patrol, but we'll just have to wait and see. So again, guys, if you like what we do here at One Mind Syndicate, subscribe, comment, share, like the video, and if you guys want to support us, Super Thanks is a great way to do it, or you can head on over to our Patreon page. Simple $1 a month does go a long way in helping us give you these videos. So that's all I got for today. As always, it's been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll catch you in the new one. Peace.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.